Hello and welcome to this episode of the Best Advice Podcast. Ben and I are sitting here. We're very excited because we're joined by Adele Martin. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic to have you along. For somebody who I've interviewed on a few podcasts, I'm looking forward to a high energy, big episode of lots of information. Now you work with your scale squad, I should say, where you work very much in the financial advice space. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so about 4 years ago, I made the decision to sell my financial planning business because at the time I was going in between. People wanted help. They saw how I'd scaled and grown and they wanted help. So I was trying to do both. And having 2 babies and being locked down, it was hard to do all those things. And so I made the sad decision to sell my financial planning business and then started a financial advisor scale squad where we help self-employed advisors start, grow or scale their financial planning businesses.
And I'm fascinated by this, and we'll talk about scale, I'm sure, throughout the conversation. But before we do that, let's jump into the big, difficult question. What's the best advice you've ever had?
Yeah, the best advice I've ever had is probably the one that's impacted my life the most. So I started financial planning when I was 19. I started in industry with 19, and I started working at a new business when I was 20. By the age of 25, I'd bought into that practice. The plan was I would buy in more over time and that my dividends would help to pay for the loan. So in theory, it sounded like a pretty sweet deal. But fast forward a couple of years, we'd survived the GFC. I started to learn about marketing and networking, but I was really frustrated because I was an owner on paper, but not in actual practice. But I felt really stuck because, I had this good deal, I had a good wage. We did all, cool team building activities. But if I looked back, I was actually, miserable because I just felt, torn because I didn't know what else I could do. So I was thinking, maybe I just have to wait it out 10 years till this guy retires. I don't know. That sounded like a long time frame to be miserable. But I didn't know what else to do. So at the time, I started working with an emotional intelligence coach, a guy called Brian Fitzpatrick. He works a lot at the time with financial advisors. And that was sort of my first experience with coaching or personal development. I hadn't done any before that. And since then, I've always worked with coaches. So even at the moment, I'm working with 2 different coaches. But I remember this conversation with Brian like it was yesterday. Brian took me for a coffee across the road from our office. And he could see that I was, frustrated. And he asked me one question. And the one question he asked me was, if I could get a job somewhere else earning more, would I take it? And I just said no, but wasn't the money like that. It was just an instant no. And he said, well, you need to put your notice in tomorrow. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't have a plan. Like, how would I be licensed? What would it cost? Like, have I got any clients? Like that just seemed like it was like just not a great, I need to have everything planned out. And he said, if you put your notice in, the universe would answer you. Now, I looked at him like he was absolutely full crazy. I thought this guy is absolutely crazy. But then I could see he was actually serious. So I felt sick on my stomach. I felt like I could actually vomit. But now I know that feeling, of fear and excitement, that means go. That means something exciting's happened. That doesn't mean stop. That means go. And the next day, I had that very courageous conversation with my business partners, and I started the process of exiting the business. It was not an easy process to exit the business. And I always say to anyone, it's a bit like a divorce. The person that you married is not the same person that you divorce. But I learned a hell of a lot from that experience and took that into future partnerships. Well, I would say, would you believe that a week after I put my notice in, I was at a networking event and I announced that I was starting my own business. Didn't have a name, didn't know where I was going to be, just knew I was, I think I'd had one conversation with the licensee, but I had no idea where I was even going to be licensed. A lovely accountant called Mel Archer was at that event. She reached out to me and told me she had a space at her office. She would charge me a very nominal amount, $100 a week. I could have not only a desk, but I could have a meeting room, a receptionist. She'd happy to share the receptionist. And my desk overlooks Newcastle Harbour. It was absolutely beautiful view. And she also had financial planning clients that needed financial planning advice as well. And so I had to have a little chocolate, even laugh about it now. If I wouldn't have put my notice in, is exactly what happened. I put my notice in and then space was created for other opportunities. So yeah, I owe a lot to Brian Fitz from that one conversation that shifted everything.
So essentially getting out of your own way a little bit, but really just making sure that you make the decision and move forward rather than just trying to make everything line up in the background.
Yeah, and I think working with someone to help you see, like, understand yourself better. So since then, I've done a lot of personal development stuff to understand myself and to know that what is necessarily good for one person might not be, right for you. And so he could just answer that one question and know. So I think that is the power of a great coach, is that they can get you unstuck and to help make you make it like a difficult decision. Because as I said, on paper, in theory, that should work, but that did not work for me. And so it was a very hard decision at the time. I felt I can still remember the feeling of being sick. That's how vivid it was. And but if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have then started my own business. I then was able to won the IFA Excellence Award, trained, Japanese financial advisors in scale. I wouldn't have been able to do all that if I stayed in that one business. But I couldn't see all the pathway. And being a financial advisor, just my personality, I do like to have a pathway. I do like to have a plan to know what's next. So doing something and taking a leap without a plan was very scary. But I know now that, like, leaning into that, that intuition, that quiet voice, you have that little knowing that this isn't right. And so if you don't create that, that space by saying no to something, it's very easy to get stuck. If you don't have so I think that's my advice, is to just dive into things. Even if you're not sure what the plan is, it will map itself out.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful. And it's interesting. I was having a similar conversation with my coach yesterday and was saying that I need you to call me out of my bullshit around this, because I'm in my head and I think I'm right. But if I'm wrong, I need you to tell me. Or if I did it wrong, I need you to tell me. And it's interesting how much advice you get. So we're hearing about great advice and best advice on this podcast, but also poor pieces of advice, and knowing the right people to listen to. And when they do say those things, going, yeah, you actually are right, is a skill in itself.
Yeah, I think there's also a difference between a coach and a mentor. And I sort of straddle between the two. So a mentor for me is someone that's done what you've done, and whereas a coach helps get into your head and helps you get unstuck or understand where, because I can give two advisors the same strategies and to grow their business, and one could smash it out of the park and the other one's like, it's not working. It's because there's something in their head that's holding them back, and unless you understand what that is, you're never going to be able to move forward. So in fact, they get super frustrated. So yeah, a coach will not necessarily come up with the answers. They'll, try to help you find the answer. Whereas a mentor will, have done the thing or give you that strategy, that advice about what to do. And so, yeah, I've worked with both. And I would say, as a coaching advisors, I've done both. And I've done a lot of work in coaching, because sometimes it's very easy to just tell someone what to do as a mentor, but that's not what always people need. And so you need to know when to step into that mentor role and when to be the coach to get them unstuck. And it's definitely a skill that's, taken me time to master. And I've done coaching in other businesses, not just in financial planning, so I could really hone those coaching skills to help people get unstuck. But I'm so glad to hear that you're working with a coach. I think that so many people think that I think like professional sports stars and that have coaches, because they don't, they don't know what they don't know. They can't see the whole picture. And you need that accountability. You need that support. And that's what a great coach does. And we see it in professional sports all the time. And, I think it is becoming something that becomes, more of the norm in everyday life. Even people that don't have businesses are working with, psychologists and to be their best version of themselves.
Hey, can I just add into that the role of the friend as well? Because the empathetic friend that says, that doesn't actually act as that coach, there's kind of like a distinction that you need to go, that's just being the friend, that's being empathetic and agreeing that I'm in a bad situation, or what are those things. But then there is a switch that says, no, can a friend act as the coach if they go, right, now I'm going to act as, like Ben, you said, hey, You actually got to say, call me on this. Don't just be my friend.
Yeah.
I mean, just to that, like, I work with a coach because I had a boss who I was very friendly with, and we still get on great today. But he called me out and said, "Stop being a dickhead. You're not doing yourself any favors with your career. Go work with someone who will help you and help you grow and call you out on stuff." So, I mean, friends maybe can identify some of those behaviors, but
So I think, especially if someone's self-employed, a business owner listening to this, if you've got friends that are employees, they're going to have different risk tolerance, different, just a different perspective on work. And so I'm very careful who I will share stuff with, and also the good and the bad of it. And because they just don't get it, they don't understand why you might be working late. They don't understand why you would invest so much in a coach. That just sounds like ridiculous to them. And so I'm very careful with the people that I share the business stuff with, because they don't get it. And then I'm also very careful who I take advice from. I always think, does that person have the business and life that I want? Because if they don't have the business and the life that I want, I'm not going to be taking advice from them. And so, yeah, they're two things. Friends that aren't in business, very reluctant to seek advice from them. And secondly, like if I told them how much I spent on coaching, they would just like not understand that in the slightest. But I'm like, that's given me the best return of investment of anything. Like investing in my brain has delivered way better than anything else could have. And so, yeah, but it's very hard for them to understand. So I am cautious of taking advice from friends, just because of that.
Is really good coaching about asking really good questions? It
is. It is about asking good questions and saying, well, if someone's stuck, it's helping them, ask a question that gets them unstuck, or also see what's possible. Like, where's that coming from? Like, and what's coming up for you now? Well, if that did look like that, what would it be? So it's just helping them get unstuck and see what's possible. The reason why I also think it's, just in the squad, and this is why I like, what I do, which is a combination of group coaching, but also one-on-one with me. So what they do is, because with me, one-on-one, I tell them something about their pricing. If I tell them they can get paid within 60 minutes of meeting a client, they don't really believe me. And so I'm like, you can have a sales process and get paid on the spot, 60 minutes. You can sign someone on an ongoing service agreement within 60 minutes of meeting them. They're like, that's not possible. But when I train them on that, and then they see other people in the squad that are doing that, and you have that sort of positive peer pressure, I think that's where you get, they see what is possible from other people that have done what they've done. So yeah, I think the thing with coaching is no one really wants to be told what to do. But if they come up with themselves, they're more likely to, stick to it. And then they're also more likely to do it if they see, that peer environment and other people have done it and know what's possible.
It's almost like if you want to tell somebody what to do, you have to ask them permission. Can I tell you what to do?
Absolutely. And that was something I made a mistake early on when I got really excited with all my coaching, is coaching people with unsolicited coaching, just like anywhere. And so I always ask permission. Are you okay if I give you some feedback? Are you okay with before I just launch into coaching, which is what I used to do, just at a barbecue or anywhere. Super fun to be around. I just got into that. So always ask permission.
Are you looking for a different perspective to help you move forward? Yeah. It can certainly be that way. I think, Ben, you gave your coach position. I want to quickly ask you about the coaching scenario. You say you've got two coaches. Are you separating strategic business coaching from emotional intelligence coaching?
No. So I weave them together. And for me, especially being, small businesses, they're two sides of the same coin. Like, personal and business are intertwined. And so I don't separate the two. We do a mix of both in it. So like, for instance, at the start of this year, we all set personal goals as well as business goals. And I am delighted to see, because for us, if you are just all business, it's very easy to burn out. If you have all your eggs in that business basket, it's very easy to, especially as a high achiever, if you have a bad day or something doesn't go your way, it's very easy to feel, down, deflated, to get burnt out. So we made a very conscious effort this year that we would set, together as a group, personal and business goals, and to see people be able to achieve their goals this year. So we just had Rachel, who I coach from Thrive Financial. She wanted to do this aerial Ariel's like, it's on her, I don't even know, it's silk. So it's silks that hang down and she's swinging around. She wanted to push herself out of the comfort zone. She just did a performance last week. I was absolutely delighted that she was able to do that. And at the same time, same week, she also got a paid workshop. So employer wanted her to do a paid workshop. She got paid to do a workshop and got clients out of it. So that was 2 goals that she set at the start of the year, business and personal. And for me, we do mix between the two because they are so closely related. No point being happy at business if the rest of your life, is lacking, or having all your eggs in that business basket. If you're a high achiever and you like learning, all your eggs in that basket, and that doesn't, you have a bad week or month, it's very easy to get, deflated, and it's hard to get back up. Well, if you've got other stuff like Rachel and other things going on where you can achieve and learn stuff, you've got that balance.
But I think also that accountability, you need that accountability. Like, it's one thing to go through the process and write them down, but another to actually get them done, because you've got somebody going, have you done it? Have you done it?
Yeah.
Why don't you do it? What's holding you back?
Yeah. And so every week we, part of what we do is we give them a 90-day plan. Every advisor that I coach, we have a 90-day plan that we're working towards. And then every Monday we come together and we're looking at taking that plan and what are we going to do this week? We also look at what are our wins, what are our lessons, and for me, there's no mistakes. There's only lessons and opportunities to improve, and what are we going to work on this week from our plan. So it's hyper-focused. And then on Wednesday, we have what we call a get shit done, where we come together sort of like a silent office and we actually do the work and implement. So we have 2 one-hour sessions where we come and actually do the work and implement. So high levels and of support and accountability, but we're mapping to a plan that they said was important. Because it's very easy in financial planning, especially every time you go on LinkedIn, there's a new AI tool. It's very easy to get, and maybe I need to change my CRM. Like about $1 for every time just this week that people ask me to check what CRM they should use to have a lot of dollars. So we make sure that they're focusing on the stuff that is the most important to where they're at in their business right now. And that does come with a high level of accountability and support. But again, like one of the tools we use as a coach is helping them understand why that's important. So when they set that goal, we don't just set the goal. We set the goal and say, well, what is the impact if I do this? And what is the impact if I don't do this? And so you've got those 2, motivations that happen. And so some people are, that pleasure seeking, and some people are that pain. We want to understand the impact of both. So then when stuff gets hard, and it will get hard, everything's not going to be smooth sailings and unicorn and rainbows. When it does get hard, you can come back to those reasons that you wrote down when you did your plan about why this was important and what's the impact if you don't do it. So, and we did that with the business goals and with the personal goals. So, and that is what you come back to. And that's an exercise you can do with your financial planning clients as well, is that exercise, because just having the goal by itself without the meeting, the why, and also what happens if you don't do it, it's very easy to lose the motivation. That's where it helps keep people motivated. Long after that, the high of setting the goal wears off, that reasons written in front of you is what helps keep you motivated as well.
Speaking of motivation, I go back to your original conversation that you had with Brian, and the motivation that caused you to get shit done. In that moment where you actually, the first thing you did was you only had one task, and that was to speak with your partners. And then when you did that, then that created the motion that set the motion and enforced that other stuff had to get done. Is that a lot of the way you work with people as well? You're talking about, okay, we actually need to create some sort of momentum or motion. And I know you love the concept of getting stuff done versus a progress over perfection. Want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So for me, I think too, having deadlines for things, because if something can get done at any time, it generally gets done at no time. So one of the things we do is that. One of the other techniques we do is the Pomodoro technique, which you guys are probably familiar with. You can get a clock, or there's a website that's free, and we set what can I get done in this time? So if you allow something to take the whole day, it's probably going to take the whole day. So it's amazing what people can get smashed out in those, get shit done sessions, because they've got that high level of focus on one thing. So that's one of the techniques we do. But yeah, definitely having a deadline and a time on stuff, massively helps. Otherwise, you'll still be thinking about what CRM I should use in 6 months. And so, putting a deadline on something and advisors are really good at data gathering. So they'll let's just pick on the CRM. They'll data gather and go to all these demos and do all these trials, and they keep data gathering. But at some point you have to make a decision. And so otherwise you'll still be thinking about it in 6 months' time. And it's the mental space that those decisions take up that become, draining and just, sit at the back of your head and take up space. And so, like, even if the decision is I'm going to stay where I am and I'm not going to revisit or think about it for 12 months, we need to make that decision and then put that in. So, yeah, having deadlines on things, I think massively helps people as well.
I think it's pretty much the fundamentals behind agile ways of working, right? It's like if you've got an hour of time and you want to get this task done, you do as much as you can. And at the end of the hour, you're done. You're shipping it. That's the way it is. And you got that done. And so now it's time for the next task.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And also the thing we do is also plan out our week. I think most advisors have time, but they're ping-ponging between 50 things all week. And so it can feel exhausting and you don't feel like you're getting that flow. So we help set up their ideal week. So they do have maybe Wednesdays with no clients, maybe Friday afternoons off. I'll cap on how many new clients they see each week. And so if they're at their cap, my next available appointment is in 2 weeks, because otherwise you just get overrun, busy, and then and then your team gets busy, and then you don't have that, that flow. So setting up weeks and creating space so they do have time to think, so they do have time to work on the business and do those improvements. That also, massively helps as well.
You've given us a lot of gems already, but what are some of the things that you would be saying often to the group of people that you work with, on the advice that you're giving them?
Yeah, so definitely progress over perfection. The first time you do something, you're not going to be good at it. Just like, when you learn to ride a bike, you weren't good at it straight away. So that progress over perfection. The other thing is you've got to practice. Financial planning. I think we sometimes think speaking in general and having meetings isn't something that you need to practice. It's not something like, being a doctor or something where you have to actually practice how to do, surgery and stuff. But it is a skill that can be practiced. And so for us, I would really encourage everyone to record their meetings. And, you got tools now like Claris that can record and give you the transcript, and you can then get look objectively and get feedback. The other thing I also say is practice out loud. So, practicing reading something is not the same as practicing out loud. So this is particularly with, difficult conversations with clients, like, if you tell someone they've got a BMI loading, practicing that before you say it. And now you've got tools like ChatGPT, or Claude. You can turn on voice mode in it and talk to it. So I get it to be the client, and I have those difficult conversations with it, or the sales conversations, or those conversations. I get it to be an easy client, a medium client, a hard client, and it can give me, feedback. So, but saying it out loud is very different to just reading it. So that's the other thing, is that financial planning and those soft skills are, something that, you can practice and get better at. And progress over perfection. And then, they're the two main ones, probably a bunch of others. But they're the main ones that we go with. And then I also I don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Just worry about what you want. So, and what's, do you want to work 40 weeks a year? Do you want to have Fridays off? What is actually going to light you up? Because if you're at your best, then you're going to be at your best for your clients, and you're going to have more energy. So I always look at, well, what do you actually want? With an advisor I'm working with at the moment, just 12 months into his financial planning business, already replaced his income. And he says to me, Adele, I'm getting, this week, he just said to me yesterday, I'm too busy. I've got too many SOAs on. It's a great problem to have. I said, yeah, but why did you start this business? And he's like, I've got a 7-month-old baby. I've got a 3-year-old baby. I'm like, well, space them out. No one says you have to do 4 SOAs in a week. So it's always coming back to, what's important to, that person, as opposed to what you should be doing. I hate the word should, what you should be doing. There's no, why you should be doing anything. I just want to, ban that sort of language, and have those things where, what do you actually want to do? What does success look like for you? Because success to one advisor could look very different to success to another advisor. So, one advisor, Mark, might have young kids and he needs to have no late appointments. So, otherwise he'll, get divorced if he's there all day and night and not. So we want to make sure that he's got that set up. Another advisor might have kids that are older and want to have all school holidays off. And so we want to look at what success looks like for them and then create the business around that rather than looking at what other people's version of success is.
Is it very easy for people to answer that question by saying what they don't want?
Yeah, it is. And often people will do that. They will say what they don't want. And so, and they, that sort of, it's very easy to do that. And I say, okay, well, if you don't want that, what do you want? And what does an ideal, week or year look like?
It is so easy to look at somebody else and go, how cool's Fraser's job and his life and what he's doing? Why isn't mine? But like even within the profession, you're discounting how good you actually are for your specific clients, and the specific advice that you're doing doesn't necessarily translate to what you're seeing somebody else do.
And also,
the other thing I was thinking,
you're only seeing their front stage. You're not seeing their backstage. That's what I think about social media and people speaking on stage and all the fancy PR. I have an insight into lots of businesses, not just financial planning business, but other businesses. And I can tell you, the more polished they usually are on front stage, the more they're scrambling behind with their service and client, deliveries, deliverables. Yeah.
Well, that was the next point I was going to make is logging what you're actually doing so that you can reflect back on stuff that's actually happened, because somebody saying, oh yeah, I knock out 20 SOAs a week, no problems at all, probably isn't the reality of what's actually going on in that business if you actually sit down and log what they're doing.
But you could also be a very different type of client, a very different stage.
Oh, totally.
And so if they're at a very different stage of business and you're comparing, also, let's pick on people doing videos or podcasts, for example. If you see someone like Ben Nash on TV smashing into videos and you've done your first video and then you're thinking, oh, I'm terrible at video, I don't think you should compare your first go with someone else's 100th go. So we've got a little visitor. Sorry, Rose, you got to go downstairs. You can take this and go downstairs, take my watch.
Has Rose got advice for us?
What advice have you got, Rose? No advice? Oh, you're quiet now. Yeah, you're
it's the
quiet.
quietest she's ever been.
What's your advice, Rose?
Rose, what advice do you give to Mum?
Stop eating chocolate.
Stop eating chocolate, she just told me. She just bought me up a piece of her chocolate. I gave
That's terrible advice.
To bribe her to stay down.
That is terrible advice.
I definitely couldn't.
Oh, man, sorry. Lucky it's you guys and you're like cool with it. I like.
Don't work with kids or pets. That's the rule, isn't it? That's good advice.
When I was building my business, I always think, you know what? Having two small children at home in lockdown, this is like altitude training. If I could train at altitude, then after this is going to be super easy. If I could do a podcast, I had to do the Japanese financial planning training that I did, which was went out to 200,000 members. I had to do that with a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old and tried to be translated and I had to slow down, translate me. And I thought, oh my God, that was so terrible. And then they came back and wanted to license it. 12 months later, could we license it? I'm like, oh, the one where I was half asleep and stressed the hilt, trying to keep the kids quiet while you were translating. So yeah, it was good times working with children in lockdown. Altitude training. Everything else is easier now because of that.
Well, I mean, that's an observation as well, right? We're never as bad as what we think. And often we're actually far better than what we think we are.
Yeah, you're always your worst critic. I can tell you when I do this with advisors that shared their wins, they'll go into what didn't work. They'll just hold you there. Before we go on to that hasn't worked, let's look at what actually worked. What are your wins from last week? And so, because we are hardwired to look for what doesn't work. It's how our brains kept us safe. And so, and it kept us alive for, thousands of years, is just looking for dangers and risks. The problem with that is you're always looking for risk. You never get to look at what's working and celebrate. And it's that celebration that gives you the momentum and motivation to keep wanting to take action. It's also super exhausting for your team if you're always looking at what's not working. And so we always celebrate the wins. We have that at the start of every week. What are our wins? And yeah, I even encourage people to do that in their financial planning business. Start the progress review meetings with what are some of their wins since your last review? What have they been able to tick off or achieve? Or what are some wins that they've had? So yeah, we're always going to be looking for those positives, because otherwise it's very easy to be in that negative space and what's not working, and you miss all the stuff that is working.
Adele, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now that I got from somebody who knows how to ask really good questions, aka what you said earlier. What's important to you, and what does success look like for you?
Yeah, great question. So for me, what's important to me is to be able to have a flexibility And so for me, the idea of having to, like, I've been out of an office now for 10 plus years. I've been my own boss for 10 plus years. For me, I liked having the flexibility to be able to, like, if I need to now, I've got elderly parents. My mum's, in her the 80s now. If I need to have time off with them, I can. I don't have to ask or check in with everyone. So for me, that flexibility is really important as well. For me, I really love being able to, success for me is being able to help support the business owners. Like, I have super love that, because for me, business owners are the ones that take a risk, they back themselves, they love to learn, they're very growth orientated. And so I love working with business owners. And I think there's never been a better time in my profession than right now to be a business owner, because there is more demand than ever before. There is less advisors, a higher barrier to entry, and you've got more AI tools coming to make it even more easier, more profitable. So for me, the flexibility that I have and the money what I've been able to provide for my family through having my own business, I love being able to support other people with that and show them what's possible. So when I first started, I thought that it was going to be with women. I thought that, I'd be helping women, and I have helped a bunch of women start their own businesses. But it's also, I realized that, that was a bit of a limiting belief of me. It's actually a lot of guys that want, and men that want to have that same flexibility. They want to be able to do school pickups. They want to be able to coach the sports team. They want to be able to have school holidays off. And so, and for me, that's what this has been able to do is to help people create, a life for themselves and for their families. And so that to me is success. I also just firmly believe that financial planning is just an amazing job. It's the mix of like when you do financial planning well, not only is it the financial stuff and the strategy, it's the personal development stuff as well. It's understanding what's important to your client. So it's a combination of life coaching and finances all in one. Like, it really is an amazing career choice for people as well. And to have that impact on someone's life, financial planning doesn't just help them. It helps their family. It then helps the community. Like, helping someone, be better off financially has a real knock-on effect to the whole community. And then, of course, if someone's, then less impact on the government as well. Like, it has such a huge impact, financial planning. So to be able to support, more advisors, to give, great advice, to have their own businesses, that to me is success.
So flexibility for family and impact for your clients or your business owners, as it also impacts the ongoing effect. The more businesses you help, the more people you felt like you helped.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you.
Speaking of help, looks like Rose needs some oil.
Yes, Rose. Thank you. She's given me chocolate. She's very kind, sharing her chocolate.
Wow, where's my chocolate?
Going to give Fraser some chocolate?
I can't push it in.
You can't push it in. No, don't put it into the computer. Oh, my God.
It's a lovely offer though, Rose. Thank you.
It is very lovely. Yeah, so I can't remember what I was saying. But success for me is, supporting more Australians to get advice, but also helping advisors with their businesses not burn out, not work crazy hours, get their pricing right, value themselves, right as well. So they're not, undercharging and then not having any reward for the risk and hours that they work. So, for me, it's really, I love working and supporting, self-employed people.
Before we got on, we were also talking about bad advice and advice you get given sometimes that might look good or might sound good, but may lead you astray. And you were talking about some that you'd received.
Yeah,
what's some of the bad advice, Adele?
So when I was 19 or 20, I did a commerce degree, and I came from a very small country town, moved to Newcastle, did my commerce degree. I was a year or so into the commerce degree. I got a job as a paraplanner, and we had an assignment to do. We had a finance, I think it was like a finance economic assignment to do, and it had to do statistics and stuff like that. So the guy was, I don't know how to say it he was like a hard ass, awful lecturer, but he'd given us this assignment, and I had questions about it. So did everyone in the class. No one really wanted to ask him any questions because he was I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on the podcast. I'm probably not allowed to swear because he was not very nice. And so I lined up to his office and asked him questions. I asked him a question, and he told me that something to do with averages. I don't even know. And he told me that I would never get a job in finance. And I said, oh, okay. I said to him, well, mate, I already have a job in finance. And he said to me, well, I pity your clients. Now, I was 19, I just turned 20. And then I said to him, if you don't want to teach me it, that's cool. Just point me in the direction of the textbook that I can find it and I'll figure it out for myself. So I went out of his office. Now, I don't know if I was a bit of a glutton for punishment, but that someone telling me that I can't do something is just like a red flag to the bull. I think I get that from my dad, that very determined sort of personality. And I was like, well, not only am I going to get a job, I'm going to be epic at it. I'm going to work hard, and you can't tell me what I can't do. And so, yeah, that even though he was an absolute prick, that was the motivation for me to, work even probably harder than I needed to, if I'm being honest. But then I just think the confidence of me, I think about this now, I don't even think I'm this confident now at 40 something, but I went back the next day with another question. Just like, well, because I think my parents have always instilled in me that you are bright, you are smart, you can figure it out. And so I just went back the next day, asked him another question. And the next day he apologized to me and said that he was out of line. And I was like, yeah, anyway, I want the answer to the question. So I had another question. I had my friend with me at the whole time too. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. We all had the same questions, but no one would ask it. And no one was afraid to ask. And so if you know me, I'm always asking questions. I was always an annoying person. That's how I learn, by asking questions, by brainstorming, by talking out loud. That's just how I learn. But yeah, at the time, that was anti-advice. Now, what was very fascinating to me is fast forward 10 years, I get a text message one night, 7 o'clock at night, saying, hey, Adele, you were just mentioned by the dean of the university, and the university speaks to graduates. I'm here with my daughter. She's graduating, and they just mentioned you as an example of one of the success stories from the university in the chancellor's address, or whatever it was. And I was like, isn't that interesting? Because if I don't listen to what one of their lecturers told me, I never would have kept going with, my career. So, yeah, I think that was the advice that I didn't take. And I think that's the thing. You need to understand, lean into yourself and when to take the advice and when not to. But yeah, I'm very glad that I didn't take the advice of that lecturer and ignored him.
There's two things I took from that. One is to obviously know what motivates you, because everyone's different, and sometimes a negative, you can't do that, will really motivate people. In the same person, a different person could just run away and be demotivated.
Oppositional defiance is one of my key motivators.
And the other thing I took from that is the advice that you just gave, which is ask the questions, like be curious, just keep asking. If you don't know the answer, go and find it. I think it's easier than ever these days. There's a thing now called, you can Google it. You can put it into an AI and ask an AI what, a large language model, what the answer is. And so getting the answers of those things are easier than ever, but you've still got to be curious.
Absolutely. And sometimes I always try and put myself in the room of like super smart people that are way smarter than me. There's one particular guy that I know, he's worth, he was on the rich list. So you can imagine his worth. He's always asking questions. He's always curious. He's hasn't got the ego that big that he's not always, curious and learning. And yeah, so for me, I take that sort of advice as well, that you always want to be in that learning mode and never shut off to learning more. I think that, yeah, if you do that, for me, then you're going backwards.
Yeah, fantastic. Adele, now we might sort of bring this to a close. How can people get a hold of you? What are some of the things that you've got coming up this year?
Yeah, lots of cool stuff this year. So we have our Financial Advisor Scout Squad event. We have our Scout Squad at it's called the Scout Squad Summit this year. We have a beautiful QT at the Gold Coast, which I absolutely love the QT. So that is on, I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but it's on the 23rd and 24th of July. So if people would like to get an early bird ticket and get a cheeky tax deduction this financial year, and escape winter, then they can come to see us at it goes for 2 days. And so there's a day of learning and there's a day of implementing. So it goes for 2 days. There's a day of learning. We have some epic speakers, obviously some AI and technology sessions, but some sessions on how to be a better advisor, that emotional intelligence skills that I think is just not taught. And so we've got some sessions on that. And then the next day, day 2, is all around the planning and the implementing and mastermind. So yeah, that's coming up on the 23rd and 24th of July. Super pumped for that. And then we've also...
So just two things on that, not tax advice. And secondly, that's 2026. So if you're listening to this after that, I'm sure there'll be another one coming up. Go have a look. And what else were you saying?
So yeah, that is coming up in July 2026. And then the other way, of course, people can always chat to me on LinkedIn. I genuinely enjoy getting questions and on LinkedIn about things. Often I get, some PYs that want to ask me questions, and I always have got time to be able to support people. So they can find me on LinkedIn if they want to jam and chat with me. Of course, we've also got the website, adelemartin.com, that has a bunch of free resources for people on there as well, whether they're starting or scaling or growing their business. We've got heaps of resources on the website, adelemartin.com.
And final question, Adele, what is the best piece of advice that you like to leave people with?
The best piece of advice is just progress over perfection. You don't need to have all of the answers straight away. And if you're feeling some fear come up and it feels fear and that mix of excitement and fear, that means go. Fear means go. It means that you are about to do something exciting, and that's a signal to go forward.
Very good. Thank you, Adele, and thank you, Rose, and thank you, Fraser.
And sorry, Kieran, for the editing that you have to do, editing out Rose. I'm like, if you have to do it on a Friday, if you should have seen the setup I had downstairs, I've got mermaids on, I've got painting set up, I've got a bucket full of new snacks she hasn't had before, chocolate, everything. No, didn't help. So that's on me.
It's just how exciting are we? We're more exciting than mermaids and chocolate. That's a flex.
Oh, dear.
All right. Have a great week, everyone.